picture this scenario, right? You're living in a fairly typical, maybe a 1,700 square foot single-story home in Yukon, Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah, right in the heart of the heat.
Exactly. It's got decent insulation, standard ductwork, nothing crazy, but it is the absolute dead of summer, and your air conditioning unit has just breathed its final breath.
Oh, man, the absolute worst timing.
Sweating bullets. You're stressed out, and this is going to be a massive hit to your wallet. So you do the responsible thing. You call around and get 3 replacement bids from local HVAC companies.
Which is, that's the classic advice, right? Get 3 quotes, compare the numbers, and pick the one that feels right.
Exactly. You're trying to be a smart homeowner.
Okay.
So the bids come in. Company number 1 quotes you a 3.5-ton unit.
Okay.
Company number 2 tells you that, no, you actually need a 4-ton unit. And then company number 3 agrees with the second guy. They also quote you a 4-ton unit. Plus, they suggest, upgrading your indoor air handler.
Classic upsell.
Right. So you look at the paperwork, and you probably assume, well, the 4-ton is the safest bet since 2 out of 3 professionals recommended it.
Makes logical sense.
You sign the contract. But there is a massive, expensive twist hiding in those numbers.
It's a twist that honestly plays out in living rooms across the country every single day.
Your 1,700 square foot house, it actually only needs a 2.5-ton unit.
Wow.
Maybe, if we are being incredibly conservative with the math, maybe a 3-ton unit.
But definitely not 4.
No. 3 professional companies showed up to your house, evaluated your situation, and the objectively correct answer wasn't even on the table. Every single quote was oversized.
Yeah, and that is the open secret of the HVAC industry.
It's crazy.
What we're exploring today is why almost every replacement bid, especially in places with intense summers like central Oklahoma, right? Why it starts at least 1 full ton too high.
And we are going to break down the severe hidden consequences of that practice. Because skipping what is essentially a standard 45-minute math problem, it's secretly costing you thousands of dollars.
Oh, absolutely. It's ruining the actual comfort of your home. And it's destroying your brand new AC unit years before its time.
So our mission for this deep dive is to pull back the curtain on that whole process.
Yeah, we've got some great material today.
We really do. We are looking at a fascinating stack of sources, including the official ACCA Manual J-Load Calculation Guidelines, Department of Energy studies on the penalties of oversizing equipment, and some really great field notes from a 45-year HVAC veteran.
By the end of this conversation, you will have the exact knowledge you need to avoid being sold a system that is fundamentally wrong for your house.
Because the problem is entirely preventable.
It is, yeah. But you have to understand the mechanics behind how these systems are sold in the real world, right? Versus how they are actually supposed to be engineered.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this. I want to start with the obvious question that comes to mind when looking at that Yukon, Oklahoma house.
Sure.
How do 3 separate professional companies all arrive at the wrong answer? Is there some secret industry meeting where everyone agrees to just upcharge for bigger units?
Well, no. It's less about a conspiracy and more about, a fundamental conflict between engineering and sales.
Okay, how so?
What you experienced in that scenario wasn't an engineering assessment. It was a sales shortcut.
Huh.
In the industry, it's heavily relied upon, and it's simply known as the rule of thumb.
The rule of thumb. It sounds scientific.
It's not even slightly.
Really?
Yeah, when a salesman walks into your house, they aren't necessarily thinking about the laws of thermodynamics.
They're thinking about the commission.
Exactly.
Right.
They're looking for a quick calculation to generate a, quote, make a sale and just drive to their next appointment. So the standard shortcut they use is simply assigning 500 to 600 square feet of floor space per ton of air conditioning.
Okay, wait. So if I have an 1,800 square foot house, they just do some quick mental math, divide 1,800 by 600, and just write down a 3-ton system on their clipboard.
That's the baseline.
Wow.
But the psychology of sales usually kicks in right after that mental math.
Oh, a bit.
A salesman absolutely dreads a callback from an angry, sweating customer in August. They call it a hot call in the industry.
Nobody wants a hot call.
Right. So to protect themselves, they add what they call a fudge factor. They bump that 3-ton calculation up to a 3.5-ton just to create a buffer.
Just in case.
Exactly.
Right.
Then, as they're walking through the house, the homeowner casually mentions, the upstairs master bedroom is always a bit too warm.
Right, which is super common.
The salesman hears that and immediately bumps the quote up another half-ton just to be safe.
Wow. And I'd imagine inventory plays a role here too, right? Like, what if they just look at their warehouse and see they have a surplus of 4-ton units just sitting around taking up space?
Oh, that absolutely influences the quote. Supply chain issues, warehouse space, or even special manufacturer incentives on certain sizes can completely dictate what gets recommended.
That's wild.
And just like that, an 1,800 square foot house that mathematically requires maybe 2.5 tons is quoted, sold, and installed with a 4-ton unit.
And the official calculation manual scientific way to determine the size of an air conditioner. Right.
Yes, there absolutely is. The industry standard is a calculation called the ACCA Manual J, specifically the 8th edition.
Okay.
This is the definitive residential heating and cooling load calculation.
And the sources detail exactly what goes into this manual J. And honestly, the sheer volume of variables is staggering compared to just guessing based on square footage.
It really is.
It accounts for the size of the house, obviously, but it also tracks your window area and specifically the orientation of those windows.
Which is critical. I mean, the Manual J asks if your massive living room windows face west because a setting sun blasting through the glass at 5:00 p.m. generates radically more heat inside the home than, say, a shaded north-facing window.
Right, right. Square footage alone doesn't know where the sun is.
Exactly.
I also noticed it asks for the R values of the insulation. You see that term on the big rolls of pink insulation at the hardware store, but what does an R value actually mean for my AC unit?
So the R stands for resistance. It's a measurement of how well your walls and attic resist the flow of heat.
Okay.
A high R value means your house is like a thermos. A low R value means it's basically a tent.
That makes sense.
And the Manual J combines that with the infiltration rate, essentially how drafty your house is. It tracks how much hot outside air naturally leaks in through the cracks around your doors and baseboards.
And it doesn't even stop with the building materials. It actually accounts for the heat generated by the appliances in your kitchen. And even the people living in the house. Because I guess humans are essentially just walking space heaters.
We really are. The sources point out that we generate roughly 250 to 400 BTUs of heat per hour just sitting around breathing.
That's kind of gross, but fascinating.
It is. And the Manual J separates that heat into 2 categories: sensible heat and latent heat.
Wait, what is the difference there? I mean, heat is just heat, isn't it?
Not to an air conditioner. Sensible heat is the actual temperature, the kind of heat you can sense with a standard thermometer.
Okay.
Latent heat is moisture. It's the humidity we release when we breathe or sweat.
Ah, right.
An AC unit has to fight both of those things. So the Manual J takes all of these incredibly specific variables, the windows, the drafts, the appliances, the latent heat from the occupants, and it outputs an exact scientific sizing target.
So it isn't a guess.
Not at all. It is applied physics.
You know, it's almost like a doctor prescribing a heavy, potentially dangerous medication dosage based purely on your height. Right. Without ever running your blood work or checking your weight or actually asking about your symptoms, if a doctor looked at you and said, "Oh, you're 5'10", take 400 milligrams of this," we would call that massive negligence.
That is a brilliant way to look at it. The rule of thumb is prescribing without blood work.
Man.
But here is the structural issue within the HVAC industry that keeps this shortcut alive. A proper, thorough Manual J calculation takes a trained technician about 45 minutes to complete for a typical house.
Because they have to measure the windows, check the attic, run the software.
Exactly.
And let me guess, nobody pays for that 45 minutes.
Nobody pays for the math. In a highly competitive market where companies are practically tripping over each other to offer free estimates just to get a foot in your door,
Yeah.
spending 45 minutes evaluating a house they might not even win the contract for. It's viewed by management as a total waste of time.
So the shortcut prevails.
Every time.
Okay, I want to play the role of the stubborn homeowner for a second here.
Bring it on.
Because intuitively, I hear that they are skipping the math and giving me a bigger unit. But if I'm living in Oklahoma and it's 105 degrees outside, I kind of want an oversized, overpowered icebox.
Sure.
Why is a bigger AC a bad thing? Like, wouldn't a massive 4-ton unit just cool my house down in 5 minutes and be amazing?
See, that instinct is the most common myth in heating and air conditioning, and honestly, it makes total logical sense on the surface.
Right, bigger engine goes faster.
Exactly. We're conditioned to think more horsepower equals better performance. But in the physics of air conditioning, bigger is better, creates a triple threat of penalties for the homeowner.
A triple threat.
It destroys your actual comfort, it balloons your operating costs, and it radically shortens the mechanical lifespan of the equipment.
Okay, I'm hung up on the comfort part. Because I'm imagining a massive AC blasting freezing air into my living room. Why wouldn't that feel great on a hot day?
It comes down to a phenomenon called short cycling, and it relates back to that latent heat we talked about earlier.
The humidity.
Yes. An air conditioner doesn't just lower the air temperature. Its secondary and arguably most important job is to dehumidify the air. It pulls moisture out of your house.
Right.
But it takes time for the system to ramp up. The warm air has to blow across the freezing cold indoor evaporator coil long enough for the water vapor in the air to physically condense into water droplets and drip outside.
Okay, so it's almost like trying to dry off after a shower by having someone throw a massive beach towel at you for exactly 2 seconds.
Yes.
Sure, the towel's big enough to dry you, but it needs time to actually absorb the water against your skin.
That is a perfect analogy.
So an oversized AC cools the air instantly, but doesn't run long enough to act as a sponge for the humidity.
Exactly. If your system is massively oversized, it blasts an enormous volume of freezing cold air into the house so fast that the thermostat on your wall registers the target temperature in like maybe 10 minutes. It sends the signal, we hit 70 degrees, shut it down. The compressor stops, the fan shuts off.
But wait, only the air floating right next to the thermostat actually hit 70 degrees. The couch, the drywall, the carpet, they are all still radiating heat, aren't they?
Precisely. So within 20 minutes, the heat from your furniture and walls radiates back into the room, the air temperature rebounds, and the system violently kicks back on again.
Wow.
You get this wild, uncomfortable oscillation. The house is freezing cold for 10 minutes, then warm and stuffy for 20 minutes.
That sounds awful.
It is. And worst of all, because the unit only ran for 10 minutes at a time, it never acted as that sponge. It never extracted the humidity.
So you end up with a house that technically reads 70 degrees on the dial, but it feels like a swamp. It's cold but sticky.
Clammy is the word most people use when describing a short cycling house.
Clammy.
The oversized AC actually makes the comfort problem far worse than a smaller, properly sized unit would have. A smaller unit runs low and slow, constantly pulling moisture out of the air.
Which brings us to the second penalty. The cost.
Oh yeah, get ready for this.
Because if I am sitting on my couch and I feel cold but clammy, my immediate psychological reaction isn't to think about humidity. I just walk over to the thermostat and I turn the temperature down even lower to try and force the machine to turn back on. I drop it to 68.
And by dropping the temperature to force the machine to run, you are just compounding the problem.
Oh, no?
You make those stop and start cycles even shorter, and you use drastically more electricity per unit of actual comfort. The source material highlights an incredible statistic from the Department of Energy and Energy Star.
What is it?
Oversized systems use 15 to 30% more electricity per year than properly sized ones.
15 to 30%.
Yep.
That is a massive penalty to pay on every single power bill all summer long.
All because the machine is too big for the space. You are literally paying a premium to a utility company just to sit in a sticky, uncomfortable house.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. What about the actual machine itself? I mean, these systems cost thousands of dollars to install.
Thousands and thousands.
If the unit is turning on and off all the time, that has to be shredding the internal components. I'd imagine these things are dying years before they're supposed to.
They absolutely are. Short cycling is a death sentence for the mechanics of an AC unit.
Really?
Think about your car. What causes more wear and tear on your vehicle's engine and transmission? Cruising steadily on the open highway at 65 miles per hour for an hour, or violently slamming on the gas pedal and then slamming on the brakes in stop-and-go city traffic for an hour.
The stop-and-go traffic, without a doubt. It pairs up the brakes, the gears, everything.
An air conditioner works the exact same way. The most stressful, power-intensive moment for an AC unit is the exact millisecond it turns on.
Wow.
Every single time the compressor starts up, it requires a massive surge of power, what the industry calls the starting current. It uses 6 to 10 times the amount of electricity to start as it does to just sit there and run steadily.
Wait, the sources mention specific parts taking the brunt of this, the starting capacitor and the contactor. What do those parts actually do?
So think of the starting capacitor like a massive high-voltage battery.
Okay.
It stores up energy to give the compressor motor the violent jolt of electricity it needs to wake up and start spinning against the pressure of the refrigerant. And the contactor is essentially a heavy-duty mechanical switch that slams shut to let all that electricity flow.
And if you have an oversized system that is short cycling, turning on and off, 4 or 5 times an hour, you are forcing that capacitor to deliver that massive jolt and that switch to slam shut constantly.
Exactly. It is brutal mechanical punishment.
Wow.
A modern compressor is typically engineered to last about 15 years under conditions of normal, long, steady cycling. But the data shows that when a unit is oversized and short cycling, that lifespan drops to 8 to 10 years.
You lose half a decade of life.
Basically.
So you pay more up front for the bigger unit, you pay up to 30% more on your monthly bills to run it, you sit in a clammy house, and then the parts fry, and you have to replace the entire system 5 years earlier than your neighbor who bought the smaller, correct size.
It is a lose-lose-lose scenario, but it gets even more complicated when that unit finally does break down.
Right. This brings up a really insidious trap that the sources outline perfectly.
Oh, the replacement trap.
Yeah, because if my unit dies tomorrow after 10 or 15 years, I'm not going to sit in my yard and do a 45-minute thermodynamics equation.
No, nobody does.
I'm just going to walk outside, look at the metal sticker on the side of the broken box, see that it says 4 tons, and tell the HVAC contractor to bring me another 4-ton unit. I mean, isn't that what everyone naturally does?
It is, and that instinct is exactly how the cycle of oversizing perpetuates itself for generations. Industry insiders call it the 1-ton you have now problem.
Because the old unit was wrong to begin with.
Exactly. Think back to 15 or 20 years ago when that old unit was installed. The salesman back then used the rule of thumb.
Oh, man.
He skipped the manual J, he added his fudge factors, and he oversized your house by a full ton. And you lived with an oversized, short-cycling, clammy system for a decade. It just became your normal.
So when the new guy shows up today, and I tell him to just match the old unit,
You are just copy-pasting a 20-year-old mistake onto a brand-new $10,000 piece of equipment.
that is devastating.
The new unit will be wrong in the exact same direction. You are trapping yourself in a cycle of inefficiency.
So what does this all mean? How do you break the cycle? If I am a homeowner listening to this, and my AC is currently, making a terrible grinding noise, what do I actually say to the person standing in my living room with a clipboard? What is the practical takeaway?
You need a secret weapon, and it is actually incredibly simple.
Okay.
It is a single question you must ask any bidder who hands you a quote. You look them in the eye and you ask, did you run a manual J?
Did you run a manual J?
And if they say yes, you cannot stop there.
Because they could just lie.
A salesman can easily just say yes to secure the contract. You must follow up with, please show me the printout.
What am I actually looking for on that piece of paper, though? Because if they hand me a scribbled notebook page with some division on it, I might not know the difference.
A real manual J printout is undeniable. It doesn't look like a handwritten guess. It looks like a tax return or a complex engineering schematic.
Oh, wait.
It will have a specific date on it. It will have the contractor's name printed clearly at the top. And most importantly, it will have a software watermark from an approved ACCA calculation program, proving they used certified software to run your specific variables.
And what if they push back? What if they give you the classic runaround? Like, listen, we've been doing this for 20 years. We go by square footage in this neighborhood. This is the size you have now, so this is what you need.
If you hear any variation of those phrases, it means they did not do the math. They skipped the 45-minute calculation.
Right.
And if they're willing to cut corners on the foundational engineering that determines the efficiency and lifespan of a massive mechanical investment, you have to seriously ask yourself what other invisible corners they're going to cut during the actual installation.
That's a great point.
If they cannot produce a watermarked manual J printout, you thank them for their time and you reject the bid.
It's the ultimate filtering mechanism for finding a true professional. And the sources actually provide a brilliant example of what that professionalism looks like in the real world. They highlight a gentleman named Dave Hartzell.
Oh, yeah, Dave Hartzell of Hartzell's Heat and Air. He operates out of Kingfisher, Oklahoma.
Dave is the exact kind of contractor you are looking for.
Yeah.
He has 45 years of experience in the HVAC industry.
Yep.
He holds a master license. He is NATE certified, which is like the gold standard for technician excellence. And the most important detail, Dave's company runs a full, legitimate manual J on every single replacement bid they do.
No exceptions, no rule of thumb shortcuts based on warehouse inventory.
They do the hard work. They run the 45-minute calculation, and they actually physically sit down and show the homeowner the watermarked printout to prove exactly why they are recommending the specific size they are quoting.
Which is exactly what you want.
In fact, the sources even drop his contact info as proof that these diligent contractors really do exist. You can reach his team at 405 375-4822. Or check out hartzellsheetair.com. It is incredibly reassuring to know that there are contractors out there who absolutely refuse to play the sizing guessing game.
They might be harder to find, but locating a contractor who engineers the system rather than just selling it, that is the single highest leverage decision you will make in the entire lifespan of your home's HVAC.
It completely changes the game. So to wrap this all up, if you take nothing else away from this deep dive, remember this core principle. In the world of heating and air conditioning, bigger is absolutely, definitively not better.
Never.
A properly sized unit, one that might seem surprisingly small compared to what the neighborhood handyman recommends, costs you less money up front, costs you less money every single month on your electric bill, lasts years longer because it isn't violently starting and stopping. And it acts as a massive sponge to keep your house dry and comfortable. Your ultimate shield against thousands of dollars of wasted money is simply having the courage to ask to see the math.
And that reality leaves us with a really unsettling point to consider, one that goes far beyond just air conditioning.
Oh.
We've seen today how an entire industry is largely willing to skip a 45-minute calculation, a calculation that strictly dictates your personal physical comfort and your financial costs for the next 15 years, simply because it is considered a convenient shortcut.
Wow. Yeah.
If professionals are willing to eyeball the math on a $10,000 piece of equipment, it really makes you wonder what other invisible structural corners are being cut in the vital services you rely on every single day just because nobody pays for that half hour of diligence.
Man, that is a thought that will definitely stick with you. So the next time your AC unit dies on a blistering summer afternoon, remember that imaginary 1,700 square foot house in Yukon, Oklahoma. When those 3 bids come in and they all look a little too big, don't be the homeowner who blindly trusts the salesman's shortcut. Be the homeowner who demands the manual J.